All right, we are rolling. It took me more than a minute to figure out the camera angle, which I will probably keep playing with that in the future, but I think I got something workable here where you can see all of me and most of the bike. So this is going to be the first of many installments, hopefully, of kind of like a watch me work series. These aren't going to be specifically like how-tos, but more so just, a little bit of behind the scenes of what we do with all the bikes that come in through Recycles Bikes. So basically, I will just choose topics each video and just kind of run through. But to start, I think we're just going to do a basic tune on this bike here. This is a Novara Corsa. It came in for donation actually this morning. And this is kind of a run-of-the-mill, just a little bit of TLC, get a bike up to snuff and ready for the floor. So I'll kind of show you a little bit about what that process looks like. I always have to start with cleaning. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my simple green here. For people who don't know what this is, I'll usually joke around and tell them that it's shaving cream. But really, it's the best thing on the market for cleaning bikes. I've tried a lot of products out there, and something about the chemical reaction right as it comes out of the can, it just grabs all of the dirt. I've tried Muck Off, Dawn Power Wash is okay, hot soapy water. Nothing really gets a bike as clean as some simple green. Just give the frame and the drivetrain a good dousing. And then most people are surprised how much water you actually use. I try and get it to the point where the bike looks like it's been sitting out in the rain. And even then, I have to usually keep hitting it with water as I clean it. Wet my rag. Just kind of start with the frame typically. Cleaning a bike is surprisingly probably about half of all of the time that bikes spend in the stand. Half of all of my time wrenching on bikes is actually just cleaning them, which is the biggest part that the customer notices. One thing I was always taught at the first shop that I worked at that I found to be very valuable is the customer really only sees and notices how clean the bike is when it comes back. Obviously, the mechanical work that we do is important, but it's equally important that it's coming back clean. This one's going onto our sales floor. It's not a customer's bike, but same concept applies. You want to make sure it's nice and clean looking. This one's not too bad. It's just got a lot of dust on it. It's a common story of a lot of bikes that get donated here. They've been sitting in a garage or shed for 5 or 15 years. And they just need all the dust knocked off. So start with the frame, go to the rims. And really it's just kind of a game of patience. I find this to be the most soothing part working on bikes. It's just cleaning. So this aspect doesn't really involve any problem solving. Although it is a good opportunity to get a good look over the bike, see what kind of things you notice. Like I noticed there's a couple accessory items on this I'm going to pull off. And if the tires are flat, might be a couple spiders living on this. one of the things I'm hoping to do with this channel is, rather than like a how-to, like bike hacks and TLC, sort of want to aim it towards people in the industry that either have shops of their own or work in shops or are interested in owning their own business in the bike industry. I feel like I have a couple unique perspectives that have helped me be successful. I guess with that, I should tell you some history of the shop. So I own and operate a bicycle shop called Recycles Bikes in Frederick, Maryland. We're finishing up our 6th season. We opened our doors in 2019. So we had one normal year before COVID hit. So there's been a lot of wild ups and downs. I've learned a lot of lessons. But it's been pretty good. If you can't tell by the name, we focus on rehabbing used bikes. We're not a retailer for like Trek or Specialized. We technically are a retailer for Giant, although, again, as the name suggests, we focus on rehabbing used bikes. So we do a lot of those 3 brands, Trek, Giant, Specialized, but we'll also do Cannondale, GT, Jamis, Raleigh, Diamondback. We pretty much exclusively bikes that would have originated in a shop, with the exception of every once in a while maybe a mid-tier bike, like something that you see out of REI or maybe Dick's Sporting Goods, but not super often. I feel like Dick's Sporting Goods used to sell some decent GTs and Diamondbacks. They're kind of like not quite the mass-produced junk you see in the department stores, but not quite the high-quality stuff that you see out of bike shops either. So we kind of have a quality standard we stick to. It's got to be a certain brand just to qualify for refurbishment. Novara, that's another one. But kind of a lesser known brand, Novara, but definitely high quality. But essentially, anything that passes that first test of being a high quality brand, next thing we do is mechanical assessment, cleaning, tuning, and then we get it out on the floor with a generous 5-year warranty. And before you think I'm insane, the warranty is labor, not parts. Although, sometimes wonder if we could cover labor and parts, because honestly, we do not have bikes coming back. I think last I checked, our return rate's something like 1/3 of 1%, which general retail is like 8 to 10. So I'm definitely bragging there with that stat. But we must be doing something right, because bikes we sell don't come back. Quite a bit of dust in this rear wheel. So I'll typically do the clean first, then I'll air up the tires, pop off any accessory items. I kind of, as a default, any of the bikes that come in for rehab for the floor, we sell all of our bikes like bare bones, just the bike, and then if you want any accessory items, we will throw them on there for you. But like, not everybody wants a kickstand, not everybody wants a bell. That bell doesn't work that well. I don't know why you wouldn't want a bell, they're very useful. clean enough for now, so I'll go ahead and move to removing some of these doohickeys. Grabbed a 5 when I needed a 4. For anyone unfamiliar with working on bikes, probably a good 50% of the jobs that you do is just an Allen key. On modern bikes, at least. An Allen key will get you pretty far. And then one of the benefits of being a used bicycle retailer is a lot of the components we get, not all of them, but some of them, we can end up reselling them as well. Kickstands, throttle cages, not usually little things like bells. Every once in a while, bikes will come in with rear rack or pannier bags, things like that. I tend to favor the Greenfield kickstands just because they are so universal. So like, for example, this one, I don't know what brand this is, Nuvo. I'm not going to keep this one. Just going to chuck it. I'm going to take off this bell too. So the shop is not just sales, we're service as well. We like to focus on refurbing bikes for resale, but we do have a full service department as well. We do probably about 2/3 of our business is sale of bikes and accessories, and then that last third or so by revenue is service. I say by revenue, not necessarily by volume. We will probably do twice as many service orders as we do sales. It's just that you make quite a bit less with a service order versus a sale. I suspect most bike shops are like that. As the tendency is, you know, there's an industry stat that I read somewhere. On average, consumer will purchase a bike once every 12 years, but they'll get that bike serviced about every 2. So it makes sense that there's quite a bit more service than sales. It's a more frequent need for people. I apologize in advance if my air compressor goes off during this video. It will be loud and you will not be able to hear me talk if that happens. Tubes are looking good. We'll see. I always like to pump them up and wait 24 hours. That's the real test. If you have a slow leak, you'll know. So, as I was cleaning and airing up the tires, I always take kind of a look through the whole bike and kind of see what my thoughts are. This one really does look like it's going to be pretty basic. It's in pretty good, clean condition. Next thing I'll kind of do is run through the brakes. So at first glance, I mean, this is functional. I like where the brake pads are sitting. I don't like that one caliper is pulling a little harder than the other. Prefer it to be centered. I'll always kind of double check the if I can use my words here, the barrel adjusters at the top. Another good tip I got at the first shop that I worked at is barrel adjusters are for customers and everything else is for the mechanic. So if barrel adjusters are out at all for a tune-up or bike for sale, I always reset them just so that the customer can have maximum maneuverability. A little bit of rub with that back brake. I usually do cleaning, tires, brakes, then I'll move on to derailleurs. Rear brakes definitely feeling sticky on this one. In fact, starting to think the spring maybe popped out on this side. Kind of looks like it. I'm going to go ahead and back that screw all the way off. Yeah. That spring back in place. I could tell it wasn't pulling at all on this side. There we go. That looks better. See if I can get them even now. You'll notice probably a lot of this in this video and future videos. Every bike is just a little different, which is part of what makes this job fun. It's like you're doing something that you're familiar with, but there's still a small degree of problem solving, and I feel like that puts me in that magic spot between, you know, how do they describe flow state? It's like the median line between stress and boredom. Maybe that's not the most positive way to put that, but how I think about it. Okay, that's much better. So my brakes are centered. I like where my brake pads are at. I like that the calipers are pulling evenly. I'll also, the first thing that I really looked at was the pull. Ideally, your brake pads are making contact with the rim by the time you've pulled this 1/3 of the way to the handle. And by the time you've pulled it 2/3 of the way to the handle, that wheel is stopped dead, and I'm squeezing the wrong brake. That looks good. If I can squeeze it all the way to where it's touching the handle, then I might want to tighten it, which as I squeeze them, I think I'm going to tighten that front one just a hair. It's a hair looser than the back. And again, I'll do this down at the mechanics adjustment and not via the barrel adjuster. That's better, just even. After that, I typically do these, what I call the sanity check. So I go across all the major bolts of the bike. Just want to make sure like headset's tight, bottom bracket's tight, headset bolts. Grab my 6. See if I can find my tools here. So I'm currently 31. I got into bikes, I say it's been about 20 years. Probably about 12 years of really hardcore working on them. That's when I started taking everything apart in the garage, and then getting into college, working in bike shops. I worked as a mechanic in 2 separate shops, one locally here in Maryland, and then another one at WVU, where I went to college. Got good experiences in both. It's really the best way to learn is kind of get yourself into a busy service department and start cranking through bikes. Let's go ahead and check that bottom bracket bolt. Check the other side. I always like to check that my quick releases are tight. I'm always surprised. Oh, yep, there's one. I'm always surprised at how many people throw these quick releases on really loose. Like they're just kind of like, oh, that's good enough. I like it, you know, you don't need to hit it with a hammer to close it, but it should be challenging to close it with your palm of your hand. So without further ado, I'm now ready for the drivetrain. Again, this isn't like a specific how-to channel. I'm not going to do a whole lot of like really detailed descriptions. Derailleurs are definitely a trickier thing to learn. You probably need to go through about 100 or 150 of them yourself before you really start to get basically the order of operations and the muscle memory. I'm just going to kind of do the 5-second explanation. First thing I do is kind of a chain length check. So I'll put it into the smallest cog in the front and the rear. This, again, might sound like a silly check, but with used bikes, I've seen a lot of things that would surprise a lot of people. Sometimes you get a bike that's just shifting funny, no matter what you do, and then you go check it, and you're like, oh, the chain length is way off. So right here, I can see that there's no rubbing of the chain against this cog here. If this chain was too long, then this derailleur would be swung back further. Likewise, if it was too short, then on the smallest rings, this would be up here. I don't see them too short as often as I see them too long. But that's like my first visual check. I'll just kind of run through the gears. Ideally, 1 click of the shifter equals 1 movement on the gear shift, which it's looking not bad. Go ahead and bring it up to the top. And now here I find myself on my lowest on the front and rear. So I'll do my limit screw check. So I'll put a little pressure on the derailleur. I can see that it thinks about overshifting into the spokes. So I'm going to get that low limit screw in just a little further. You want to be able to push on that derailleur just like that, and it's still not going into the spokes. So we're good on that side. On the front derailleur, it's a little bit more of a visual check. You want it as close as possible without rubbing, which, you know, pushing it, I'm happy with where that's at. So the next thing I'm going to do is check the opposite extreme, the high limit screws. Get into the high on the front, down on the back, and it looks like it's not shifting down. So we have a little bit of a interesting problem solving to do. Seems like the cable's getting kinked. There we go. So just as I tried to push it into the spokes, now I'm going to try and pull it off the other direction. See if it wants to jump. And again, it's not jumping, but it's thinking about it. So I'm just going to turn that high limit screw a little bit. That's better. Check on the front. Not feeling any overshifting, but I am noticing that the front derailleur itself is just a hair cockeyed. So I think I'm gonna fix that. Kind of flared out just so that it's rubbing against this little plastic chain guard in high gear. That's gonna be not fun. To that end just a little. Go. Let's see what that looks like. That one, screw bit. Anyone who's worked on bikes knows it's a lot of finagling. Still getting some noise in there. Looks like it's just sitting at a little bit of an angle. Rear shifting real nice. All right, we're making some progress. It's so close that it's shifting the way I want. It's just making a little bit of noise, especially on that third. There we go. All right, so I'm going to do just a little bit more simple green on that chain. I can see a little bit of surface rust, which a little bit of simple green and a steel brush definitely does the trick. And then I'll just hit it with water again and a rag. If you ever see light brown, especially on the chain, light brown is going to be surface rust. Dark brown is when it's pitted into the metal. Once it's pitted, there's not really anything you can do. So smaller componentry, I'll replace it. We replace a lot of chains and a lot of rubber products. So like dry rot in the tires, tears in the seats, gummy grips. I don't know how many hundreds of tires we burn through in a year, but it's a lot. Now that I got the chain cleaned, I got my brakes good, I got my shifting where I want, I've done a bolt safety check, minus the bolt underneath the seat there, which I should check. Once I've done all these things, I usually, and again, you can go in any order you want, I usually end with lubrication. I'll lubricate the chain, I'll lubricate some of the joints around the derailleurs, and then I will also pull the lines, lubricate the cables a bit. Sometimes it's good to do that step at the beginning too. It can make it a little easier to clean the frame. It's kind of like, I don't know. The order, kind of tomato. lube. This bike wasn't weather worn, but it always is good. It just makes the bike feel snappy. Like this has a little bit of crud or corrosion in there. That's better. We have 3 tiers of tune-ups. Most bike shops have some kind of iteration of this, like a basic, an annual, and then like some kind of comprehensive or overhaul. So this one here has been a good example of a basic tune. Some shops call it a wheels on tune, and then their kind of intermediate service will be a wheels off. This one had true wheels, so I just left the wheels on, but that will be the next step up tune-up. If this one's a basic, or like annual or comprehensive one would involve us popping the wheels off and getting them in the truing stand. Fun fact, my camera is actually currently being held by my truing stand. You can tell this is my very first video. I'll have to get some higher tech here. I start getting into this. It's part of what dictated this choice of bike. I knew it didn't need wheel truing. But anyway, that's you know, first tier, basic tune, cleaning, lubing, adjustments. Second tier is going to be pulling the wheels off, getting them in the truing stand, make adjustments to the hubs, a little bit of a deeper cleaning. Basic tune probably on average takes me 30 minutes. The next step up might take me 45, 50 minutes. And then that last step is going to be an overhaul, which overhaul tunes, we don't just lube the cables and housing, we replace them completely. So new cables and housing throughout the whole bike, complete disassembly down to the bottom bracket. We will replace brake pads and the chain. Commonly, when you swap out the chain, depending on how long it's been on the bike, you'll have to swap out the cassette as well, which we're not quite that generous. The overhaul won't include a cassette replacement, but it will include the chain replacement. I might have put that high limit screw in just a little too far. Possibly same on the low limit screw. I'm distracting myself, getting into problem solving, but going back to those 3 different tiered tune-ups, we'll probably do 250, 300 basic tunes a year, and about the same number of the intermediate. But the overhaul is typically reserved for like nostalgia projects. Usually that's someone who's got like a bike from the 70s that they used to ride around college, and they want to rehab it. You don't see it as often on a modern bike, A, because they don't need them as often, and B, because there's usually not cause for putting that kind of investment into it. Usually that's a replace rather than repair type of scenario. But with this one, we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and pop the seat back down, and last step is always taking it for a test ride. Just make sure it rides as well on the street as it shifts and brakes in the stand. And then we'll go ahead and slap a tag on it and get it out onto our sales floor and sell it with warranty. So that's, I think that's it for video 1. Hopefully many more to come. Thanks for tuning in.